I have a cold, so bear with me as I sound like Marlene Dietrich, I think. That was an incredible talk. I just full kudos to you. Because sometimes you phone blood bank and it just feels like you're talking to somebody that doesn't know that you're in the pit of blood, and that is not your approach. And so thank you so much. I was writing down your approach. That was great. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about oxygen, and I'm not actually going to focus on intubation. Heresy, because I really do want to focus on what the patient really needs, which is oxygen. And I think sometimes I use this slide because I feel like this sometimes when I'm dealing with a really difficult situation that seems to snowball out of my control. I have a couple of disclosures. I own this thing called the Airway app, and we collect data on emergency cricothyrotomy worldwide, and I'd like to share some information about that with you today. I also have created this cricothyrotomy model, which we'll use in the workshop this afternoon. It's available for free. You can download the STL, or it's kind of like a PDF file, and you can print it off yourself. These are the guys that helped me make it in Vancouver. If you just want to order one, it's about $35. I get no profit from this. I've just become an editor on the editorial board for the journal Anesthesia, and you can look up this stuff on MCRIT or on our Airway collaboration. This is courtesy of Rich Levitan, this slide. And I thought I had a desaturation sound, but because it's not coming up, these are the 4 horsemen of the airway apocalypse. If I said this to you, boop, 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 your heart rate has just gone up by about 2, at least. And that's just me up on stage. So in this sort of situation, the wheels start to come off. All your best laid plans may start to get a little bit shaky, or as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. And so we need to actually simplify our airway management and make it very clear and concrete, not only to ourselves, but the people in the room that can help us out. And this is why here is that this is an old study, but as your heart rate starts to go up, you are actually losing your fine motor control. Then your complex motor control and ability to do very much at all. Your vision and hearing go as well. What was the stat when you guys were doing that? I have no idea, actually, no. And so I always go back to Sackel's triangle. I really, really like this. This is John Sackel's work out of Arizona. He's an emergency doc. And he just says, well, can I bag him? Can I tube him? Can I bail myself out with a supraglottic airway or CICO rescue? Now you'll see there's very little writing and more graphics on this page because when our heart rates go up above 115, we can still see pictures where we can't read anymore. Who here has had a vial of epinephrine in front of them and has said to somebody, where's the epi, where's the epi, where's the epi? We all have. We just cannot read anymore. So I love this. This is on vortex.org, and these graphics are available for free. And I would suggest you start simplifying your airway part with pictures instead of writing, instead of having people need to read these things. How simple is that? Doesn't that make your mind go a little bit calmer in the middle of a situation? My first case is this. This was a mind-blowing thing for me in 2016. And I thought I kind of knew a few things about airway. But I was at Rich Levitan's course in Yellowstone. We were teaching together, and he taught me about inspiratory flow requirements. Now, who here has had this guy in the emerge? He's septic, he's sitting up, and he says, I can't breathe on this mask. And you say, well, geez, it's at 15 liters per minute. What more do you want? I'm giving you more than your minute, requirements, even if you're going at 10 mets. So a mat is about 250 cc's of oxygen per meter squared per minute. And, so as an anesthetist, I'm like, you're just claustrophobic, or you're delirious, or you're an asshole. So I want to explain to you why he knows more than me. And we're going to do a little bit of math. And I know it's early in the morning, but let's just say that his tidal volume is 0.5 liters. And his respiratory rate is 30. He's really working hard to breathe. So how much oxygen does he need per minute? It's not like the hematology questions. This is simple. So how much does that work out to be? 15 liters, right? So you set it at 15 liters and you're like, well, so what's the problem? And the problem is he needs 15 liters in half that time because he cannot breathe in for a minute. He also needs to breathe out. And so if we just set him at 15 liters, he says, I can't breathe with this on because he can't. So that's why we need 30 liters per minute. Because if we assume an IE ratio of 1:1, he can only breathe in for 30 seconds and he needs 15 liters in that time. This is the whole principle of high flow nasal prongs. This is why OptiFlow and the other things that are now out start at 60 liters per minute by humidified nasal prongs. And if you've wondered why on earth people would need that, it's because of this. If you look at your ICU vent settings, the inspiratory flow rate starts at 40 liters per minute. And that's why we need to match the inspiratory flow requirements. So I had a patient with a perforated viscus with end-stage liver disease in full sepsis. He came in with one of these masks onto the OR, and his O2 sat was 87. He couldn't speak in full sentences. And the nurse said to me, "You're just gonna put him down, right? Like, oh my God." And so what I did was I actually turned up my oxygen to the point where we couldn't hear ourselves, right? And then the guy's O2 sat went up to 95 and he started breathing. He started speaking in full sentences. And suddenly the whole room changes the dynamic. Well, this is not a crash intubation. This is a crash oxygenation. And so your flow meters go up to 15 or 18 liters per minute, right? But they can go a lot higher. I'm going to show you that right now. So we tested all 5 flow meters in our hospital in biomedical. Why we have 5 flow meters in the first place is a bit of a question mark. This is what we found. This should be a video. This is the flow meter. If anybody has a new MacBook Pro, don't they just make you nuts? Like, they're just so bad compared to the old ones. This is what we found on a normal flow meter. That's the maximal flow that we got. It's 78 liters per minute. Now you won't see that with your bobble, but just continue to turn it up and up and up and up until you cannot hear yourself anymore, until it maxes out. And that's about 70 liters per minute. We got anywhere between 64 and 78 liters per minute. So don't think that you can't match these inspiratory flow requirements. You just can't measure them. You can get high flow meters on your flow meter, and so that's what John Sackles has done in Arizona, and you can start ordering those. So we can do it. The overhand vice grip to the BVM, once you get to that stage, actually has been shown definitively now in multiple studies to improve your tidal volume and ability to bag. Now, when you learn this in med school, everybody relied on your little tiny pinkies, right? Underneath the jaw, and you'd be doing this. And they're like, no, pull up on the jaw more. And what we're doing is we're depending on these little tiny suckers to actually do the majority of the work. By actually putting your thumb and forefinger over, your index finger over the mask, you're actually just having these little ones. But if you reverse that, we're going to be doing that in the workshop this afternoon. This is a life-saving way of doing it. And watch me, WEC technique, elbows are out, shoulders are up. Once I do this with an overhand grip, all my fingers come under the jaw, my shoulders come in, and I'm at 90 degrees. Then you can do this for half an hour easily. And in Vancouver, we're all about the yoga moves, so that's kind of that's a relaxation yoga move right there. So it's the ergonomics are extremely important, and it actually improves your tidal volume in a paralyzed patient by at least 100 cc's. I want to talk to you about intubation. VL is very popular now, and I want to show you something. Hopefully this video will work. None of my videos. Was it working?
Yeah, it was working twice.
Yeah. This is an immediate extubation failure in somebody with an anterior cervical spine fusion operation. I was called in to assist. This guy was very difficult to intubate at the start. It's not gotten much better. This is the view on VL. So he tried to blindly put it in, and then he said, "Can you please put down your phone?" It wasn't that polite. So the VL view, when VL is your backup to DL, it sucks the air out of the room when you have this failure. And we now know what the risk factors are to that. Mike Aziz's work out of Portland shows us that actually any instrumentation to the neck, previous radiation to the neck, or even if you see a scar to the neck, this may portend VL failure. And this was a hyperangulated VL blade. I'm not saying that everybody that has that will fail, but just keep that in your mind's eye, that you need a full plan with Sackel's triangle, and not just say, well, it should be okay with VL, because sometimes it will fail. The other thing that happens is you can get something called glottic impersonation, where if you pull up hard enough, you get these sidewalls of the esophagus that start to look like cords. This also happens in neonates during resuscitation. You put the Miller blade in too far, you pull up, you swear to God those were the cords. And it's utterly untrue. So how do you tell the difference? Especially if you put your blade in too far and you see this. Well, geez, I saw it go through the cords. Seeing a tube go through the cords is not 2019. It's unacceptable endpoint. Absolutely unacceptable. Waveform capnography, and if you remember anything from this talk, it's waveform capnography. If you don't have waveform capnography on every resuscitation card, for every single intubation, for every single transport, full stop, you are not practicing in 2019. And a teaser alert, the Canadian Airway Guidelines will be coming out later this year, waveform capnography. So if you're looking for something to say, we need waveform capnography, our Canadian guidelines will tell us that in about 6 months. So there's just no question. We continue to see esophageal intubations leading to death. And if people say to you, well, the patient's arrested, that's why there's no waveform capnography. Cliff Reed's work in Australia, George Kovac's work now coming out of Halifax tells us that in cadavers, 2 days later, they will still have waveform capnography. Attenuated, but nonetheless. No trace, wrong place, full stop. Full stop. This is an underutilized resource, the supraglottic airway, and we're going to be dealing with that in this afternoon's oxygenation workshop. Why is that? Well, this just came out in February, and Rosenstock is really interesting. That does a lot of publications out of Denmark where they collect every single intubation that happens in the OR. And in these cases, CICO cases were 455 cases out of, look at this, over 500,000 patients. 455 cases of CICO. Now, only 86 of these patients got a supraglottic device put in while they were prepping the neck for emergency surgical airway. In every single guideline across the world now, the use of a supraglottic airway in CICO is recommended. And yet only a very small amount was this tried, just over 20%. It worked in just over 60% of these patients though. It's really worth playing for. The N value to learn how to put in a supraglottic device is approximately 10. The retention is still, we need to see what the retention is like. It is an unknown thing. If you put in a supraglottic device today, do you still know about it tomorrow, next week or next month? But to me, this is a much safer option than intubation if you don't do it very often. How do you know that it's working? Waveform capnography. How do you know that you're bagging properly? Waveform capnography. Waveform capnography can be used for every single thing. So it works in 60%, and we know in our airway app data, supraglottic devices have been put in less than 50% of the time. And I think it's because we don't want to play snakes and ladders. Doing a supraglottic device is going backwards, and the only thing you want to do is intubate that patient to your safe zone. And you need to actually think that your closest exit may be behind you with a supraglottic device. What one do I recommend? I used to say, I have no vested interest and anyone would do, but I think the iGel is starting to come out on top for people that don't use it very often. I see some nods of the head in front, because you don't have to think about, how much do I blow it up? It just is, you just put it in. And so there's some nice pre-hospital work on that. And finally, with CICO rescue, if you get to that, when you put in your supraglottic device, you paralyze the patient. You paralyze the patient. If you have CICO, you're gonna paralyze that patient. In CICO rescue, I think this is utterly unacceptable.
in ACLS and ATLS, we have very defined things, right? You do this, except for the H's and T's, which I agree is utterly confusing. But this is the only CICO situation you will do in your career. What would you like on the menu? And you're like, I don't know, whatever works. Well, we don't know what works because it's actually happened so infrequently we can't collect that data. And I think that's unacceptable. I think we all have computers in our pockets. Let's start working together to collect data on rare events like this. And so what do we know now? Well, we know now that multiple things makes people not know what to do. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the TED Talk by Barry Schwartz called The Paradox of Choice, but he says the more choices you have, the less you're inclined to make a decision. So we need to cut this down based on evidence. And just like our intubation rates are first pass success, we should focus on first pass success of cricothyrotomy, right? I want the first thing that I do to work. Again, with this is where we are right now, if not this, by the time we're reaching this stage, right? It is not the time to make decisions with a universal kit saying, I need this, I need that. There is 2 different dilators for 2 different things, 2 different ways of doing this in this one kit. Neither one of them are compatible. That's a problem. So this universal kit, I think we need to ditch it, actually. I also don't want to see you putting together 3-way stopcocks and a cannula during this life and death situation. It has been led to subcutaneous emphysema and the obliteration of landmarks, making surgical or open airway impossible. And that's a study coming out in anesthesiology this summer. And that's in real cases, closed claims analysis of CICO cases out of the States. So please don't MacGyver things together. I know it makes us all feel like genius if we can cobble things together, but this is not the time, even though so many letters to the editor come out about this topic. We need to do this. We just need to keep it simple. Now, Cook Medical is going to release a scalpel number 6 tube bougie combination for you over the next year, which is awesome. They will charge you over $100 for something that is approximately $15 for you to put together yourself. So do not thank them, and it wasn't their work in the first place. So just put it together yourself. In every single airway location, have this. And I don't care how you put it together, in a red box, in a baggie, in a whatever, but every single location. And do not say, well, we can get the scalpel from here, we can get the bougie from over there. It should be all together. Nobody should have to run for equipment in these situations, albeit rare. These are the 95% confidence intervals based on our app data. It's anonymous data, so take it with a grain of salt. We have large confidence intervals, and I've made this proportional to the number of cases we've collected. This is the 95% confidence interval of each of these types. This is cannula, this is actually the open technique, and this is wire-guided. Get rid of your wire-guided cricothyrotomy kits today, right? Their 95% confidence interval goes up to 55%. That is unacceptable. We want the highest percentage that we can get in terms of first pass success. Same thing with cannula. It may be as high as 68, but we have very small cases on this, very small numbers. Simple. Simple when your heart rate's 140. So we'll practice that. And we practiced that yesterday with Josh, right? In the workshop. So these are my big take-home points. Waveform capnography will help you with your BVM, with your supraglottic device, with your intubation, and with your surgical airway. There's no question. The disposables in Canada are approximately $35. And if you've ever had an esophageal intubation that went undetected, leading to a death, which continues to happen, and happened 3 times in the last 5 years in my own hospital, it is unacceptable. So waveform capnography. We need to keep it simple, simplify your airway carts. They should not be museum pieces of various ways of intubating. Match your inspiratory flow rates. You may actually prevent an intubation. Overhand, two-handed, waveform capnography, I think I've emphasized. The eye gel, I think, if you were to choose one thing. Feel free to take a picture of this. And scalpel, bougie tube, and simplify your airway carts. Go in, figure out what they are, put those stickers on. This was in the Denver airport last week, which I thought was hilarious. What could go wrong with a bunch of people going onto a plane with pressurized oxygen sources? Thank you.